First of all, I want to say welcome to you all, and I'm so glad that you all have embarked upon our embryology project for this year. It is such an exciting project, and I look forward to it every single year. So I am very, very happy to have you here. So I am going to try to navigate this with the pictures that you have. To get started with, one of the most important things that I wanted to share with you all this year is the avian influenza outbreak. It's a virus that is out there that is impacting poultry. That includes turkeys, quail, as well as chickens. So in doing this project, it is important that we all understand that that what we do matters, and that everything that we do with the chicks once they hatch is super, super important to us, so that we are making sure that we are being safe and keeping our birds safe for the duration of this project. Okay, so just wanted to make sure that we were all aware of that, and to make this clear to you kiddos. Let me tell you what this means. This means that things that we do outside of the classroom can get our chicks sick. Now, one important thing I want you to know is that our chicks continue to live. So once your teachers bring them back to our office on March 31st, I then take them, along with my agriculture agent here in the office, to 4 farms that produce eggs for local restaurants and for food banks. So we do not, in their life, it continues to go on. However, if we get our chicks sick, they cannot go on because they will infect other chickens, and then that will wipe out an entire flock of chicks. So I'm going to share with you my screen, so that way you all can see what is up on the website. All right, so here we go. So everybody see my screen here that says biosecurity for embryology and poultry chain. That's what I want you to see. So I'm going to pop this out, and this is on the website for embryology. So your teachers have access to this. They also received this in their email or in their bag on yesterday. So you all do have this in your classroom. So please do take an opportunity to read it. It's going to take a second. Here we go. And this is because of this virus. So your eggs have come from a certified hatchery. Okay, so our eggs are absolutely clean. They have not been introduced to any viruses or anything anywhere. Okay, so we don't have to worry about this here. So what we do have to do is make sure that we are practicing good personal hygiene. We are washing our hands thoroughly before and after handling the eggs or the chicks, because we carry germs on us and we don't want to transfer that to our chicks. So before you touch the chicks, even if you're just petting it with one finger, two finger, one hand, make sure you start with clean hands. So wash your hands very clean, your fingertips and all of that, okay? After you handle the chicks, once again, you want to wash your hands, make sure you're scrubbing your fingertips very clean, so that way you do not get sick either, because baby chicks, as you know, when you get them in their brooder, they poop everywhere, and then their little feet run all over top of the poop, and there's salmonella in there, and you can also get a disease called encephalitis in your lungs, which can hurt you when you breathe in those particles in large quantities as well. So we want to keep you healthy and safe, as well as these baby chicks healthy and safe. So we're their protectors. So washing hands before and after is super, super important. We also want to wear clean clothes and shoes, and avoid clothing and shoes that are worn around other domestic or wild fowl. So that word fowl, Fowl, simply means bird, okay? So if you have backyard chickens or backyard birds, even if you have a pet parrot or parakeet or cockatiel, any bird is able to carry the avian influenza virus. Okay, so if you come into contact with any other animal before you come to school and you still have on those clothes, then there are particles that could be embedded in your shoes. And when you walk into your teacher's classroom, across the carpet or across a rug or across the floor, those particles get deposited everywhere where you step. And when you put your newly hatched baby chicks on that floor to run around or to sit and take pictures and to hold, they get exposed to all of those particles, either on your clothes when you're holding them and you're cuddling with them. And we do not want to do that with the chicks this year because we know that this virus is out there. So we have to protect our chicks, keeping them away from our clothing and making sure our shoes get washed thoroughly when you go outside and work with your chickens or your backyard birds in case you have quail or pheasants or anything, or even in your house when you have birds for pets and whatnot in your house. So we're going to have your teachers only to be the ones that are going to handle the eggs because they have gone through the training and they know exactly what to do and what protocols to take as well. Okay. Now, your chicks are going to come back to us after 1 week after they hatch. So you will have roughly 5 days in the classroom with your baby chicks. So make sure you are protecting them, make sure you are taking good care of them, and that you are keeping yourself clean and that you are keeping their environment clean as well. Okay, so I am going to stop sharing my screen now so that way you all are back here in front of me. So I'm going to pause right there and see if anyone has any questions. All right, I do not see any questions in the Q&A, so I'm going to open up my chat. I don't see any questions in my chat, so I'll pause. Any questions? All right, seeing none, I am going to move on. So, also on your website that your teachers have for you, there is a curriculum that takes you through the Embryology Project. Lots of fun resources and good posters and things there for you to see. And there is one called Beginning of Life. And I'm going to pull an activity from the Beginning of Life to show you. Of course, these eggs have to be transported from a very far place. I drive 2.5 hours to our certified hatchery to pick up our eggs to make sure that we have really good eggs to work with on this project. So we have 1,100 and about 35 eggs out there in the city of Virginia Beach right now waiting to hatch, okay? So that's a lot of eggs. And this is the biggest embryology project that Virginia Beach has ever done. So potentially, we have the potential to have over 1,000 baby chicks hatch all across the city here in Virginia Beach that will go directly into growing up to be egg producers for 4 local farms to supply to restaurants, to also supply to food banks, and possibly even their own farm stands. So we are doing our part to help bridge the gap with egg supply here locally in the city of Virginia Beach. So congratulations to you all for that. But I also want to take a moment and teach you all about how an egg is designed to provide life for a chick. I mean, you think about it. You eat eggs for breakfast, right? But the eggs that are in your grocery store are not the same as the eggs that we get from the hatchery because the eggs that come from the grocery store are infertile. Okay, they are not fertilized eggs. The eggs I get from the hatchery are fertilized eggs. They are not the same. Only the eggs that come from the hatchery can turn into baby chicks. The eggs you get from the grocery store cannot ever turn into a baby chick, no matter what you do. There is an extra process that has to happen with that egg in order for it to become a fertilized egg, in order to produce a baby chick. All right, so we're going to take a look at one of the eggs that I got from the hatchery that was injured on its way in transit here. And we're going to see all the different parts inside of the egg and what those parts of that egg mean for us. All right, so I am going to switch now over to my iPad. So that way, all right, everybody, if you can, go down to your reactions and give me a thumbs up so I can see if you see my egg front and center of your camera. All right, I see a thumbs up. Excellent. Thank you, Tracy. Appreciate that. All righty, so here we have an egg. I'll try not to block it. So we have our egg here. Let me see if I can turn this around this way so I can work a little better. Here we go. Don't tip over. All right. So we have our egg here, and it has a small crack right there on its shell. Back up a little bit. There we go. So you can see it's got like a little dent in it right here. So we're going to use that point right there to open our egg up. All right. So I'm just going to tap it gently here because I don't want to break it too much because there's something really awesome that I want you to see inside the shell of the egg. And this is why it's super, super important to keep the humidity correct while you are incubating your egg. Okay. And I did this experiment with some store-bought eggs with your teachers when they came for the training for embryology, so they know how to do this with you. So you see, even though the shell is cracked, there is a membrane between the shell and the egg yolk inside. This membrane right now is really, really moist. And we need to keep that moist as long as possible because the inside of the egg will dry out as the chick develops inside. Okay, so this membrane, the chick has to be able to break through when it hatches. If this membrane dries out too much, it becomes like shrink wrap and it gets smaller and smaller and smaller until it will suffocate and squeeze the baby chick inside, and the baby chick won't be able to take its first breath. Okay, so that's why the humidity setting in our incubator is really, really important. Also, it's important that you put your egg in the incubator the correct way. So if you notice with an egg has a very wide end and then it has a more narrow end. It's important that when you put your eggs in the incubator that you put it in with the narrow side down, just like this, okay? And if you have an incubator that rotates the eggs on its side, follow the directions of that incubator. I have one here in my office, and it tells me to put the wide end towards the outside and the narrow end towards the inside because when the tray rotates it, it rolls it this way. And that's to make sure that when the chick is developing inside, that it's not sticking to one side of the egg, because if it does that, then it won't be able to grow and it will not hatch. Okay. Now, why is it important to put it on the wide end? Because up here in this wide end of the egg is an air pocket. And that air pocket that is here inside the shell is where the chick will take its first breath before breaking through the shell. So just remember, if this inside membrane in here is too tough and too dry and squeezes the baby chick, it'll never get through it to get to that air pocket that's here. Okay. And let me see if I can show you that air pocket. When you guys start to candle your eggs, you'll see the air pocket inside of your egg. Okay. So I'm just going to slowly try my best to peel without rupturing too much. Okay. And so I don't know how well you guys can see, but there's like a little indentation underneath of the shell up here, and that's where that air pocket would be. Okay. And I have ruptured the membrane, but see, it's just like paper that you can pull back. Okay, that's right underneath of that shell. And if you have a boiled egg, or if you've ever made a boiled egg, then you've seen that membrane right underneath of that shell. And you can actually peel it away from the shell, just kind of like you see me doing here. Okay, so now there's another piece or part that I want to show you all, and I'm going to try my best not to rupture the yolk in here. And I'll show you how you know that this egg is fertilized. So very carefully, you see all the egg yolk that is inside of here. That's called albumin. Okay, when we boil our eggs, that's the part that turns white. Okay, now if you notice, there's also something else inside of here that is called the chalaza. And the chalaza is this white, stringy looking piece. I'm just going to pour that out there. Okay, so you see this white, let me see if I can show it to you, this white stringy piece that's hanging off of the egg right here. That is called the chalaza. Okay, and that chalaza is one on both sides of the egg. All right, I've got stuff all stuck to my fingers here. Give me 1 second to just clear away some unnecessary pieces here. All right. So your chalaza is what anchors your egg inside of the shell. Okay. So if you notice right here, you see, let's see if I can turn it back around here to where you can see. All right. So you have chalaza right here on this side of your egg. Slippery. All right. And then you have it also on the other side of your egg. And it's a longer strand on this side. See? So that anchors your egg yolk to the shell. Now, how do you know that your egg is fertilized? Because any egg that is fertilized will have a germination disc on it. And that germination disc looks just like what I'm telling you. It looks just like a disc. So what I'm going to have to do now to get this egg turned over so that I don't break it so that you can see it is I'm going to have to do a little flipping it over into my hand and see if I can. There it is. It's right. Let me move some things out the way. The germination disc is right there. It looks like a bullseye on the egg. And I don't know if my tablet camera will be able to, let's see, roll over, Eggie. It's right here on our egg. Right here. There's a little disc with the shininess is making it difficult for you to see, but it's a very pronounced white round circle that's in the center of the egg yolk on your egg. And that disc lets you know that this is a fertilized egg and it will develop into a baby chick. Okay. So we know that we are working with, let me see if I can find a better angle here. Oh, you can see it a little bit right there, right on top. Right there. That germination disc. It's right in the center. Oh, it's trying to focus. There we go. Okay, so that's how you know your eggs are fertile because it has that wonderful little germination disc. Now, what keeps your yolk together and in place is that there is another membrane around this yolk. Okay, so this yolk is what's going to feed your developing baby chick while it is developing. Okay, and as it's developing, um, it'll ingest that, which is why your baby chick won't eat for probably the first 24 to 48 hours because this will have fed him upon exit. All right. And after it hatches, you should use your chick starter feed to start feeding your baby chick in its brooder after it hatches. Okay. All right. So I am going to now unpin my egg yolk. All right, so that way I can see you all again and see if there are any questions. Any questions, anyone? I will open up the chat box so I can see if there's anything there. I don't see anything in the Q&A, but feel free to unmute if you want to ask your question out loud. Any questions? Teachers, do you have any questions? I've gotten a
We
few
have a
questions.
question.
Yes.
Hey, it's Tracy. One of the students wanted to know, what if you have 2 yolks and 1 egg?
Ooh, that's a good question. I have never seen 2 chicks emerge from 1 egg before. And in cracking open eggs that have been injured in transit, I've never found double yolks inside of 1 egg before either. So I don't know, but I guess anything is possible when you're thinking about nature. That's a good question. And you know what? It actually, Tracy, it makes me think of another bit of information. You know, in nature, there is always survival of the fittest. Okay, and the first chicks that will hatch will be the very strongest chicks out of your incubator. So once they dry off, you'll hear them peeping and talking to each other inside of the shells before they hatch. But the ones that are the later ones, like the very last ones to emerge, are going to be a little bit weaker. So they'll need a little bit more attention. So you have to pay very close attention to those chicks once they start to hatch because they will beat each other up. They are quite mean to each other because the strongest ones want to be the dominant ones and will want to take over your brooder box. So if you see the chicks beating up on any one of the later hatching chicks, take the weaker chick out and just separate them out. They will still need to be near the heat lamp, but you got to keep them away from those stronger chicks because they will continue to beat him up and bully him to the point that they might even die from being pecked at. Okay, so you have to protect all the chicks once they hatch. All right, let's see. Can you help the chick out if it can't hatch on its own? No, please do not help any chick. Last year, we had some chicks. We called them our island of misfit toys because they were the late bloomers or the late hatchers, and they had some difficulties. And we separated them out and gave them a chance to live. And I did help one of them out because he was struggling. And I'm going to tell you, it did not survive, even though we gave it a chance to live. So if they cannot come out of the shell, it could be due to some type of developmental defect within the egg that will make it suffer longer if we help it out to try to get out of the egg. So we want to let nature take its course because once again, nature has its own way of selecting the strongest and fittest of the chickens to survive, as it is with any animal breed. Okay, so no, please don't help the chick out. It's really not doing the chick any favors, and we don't want it to suffer longer than it should or has to. Let nature take its course. How does the yolk feed the chick? Good question, Joelle. Well, When human babies are inside their mom, they have what's called an umbilical cord. Well, those baby chicks will also develop an umbilical cord as well. And the umbilical cord that develops with the baby chick will be connected to that yolk, which has the nutrients that it needs. So when your chick hatches, you might even notice the umbilical cord is still attached to the shell, to that inside of the shell once the chick hatches. It should dry and fall off on its own. If it does not, then it could lead to some other issues or problems with the chick, which means that something developmentally did not complete during the process of that embryo turning over into a chick. Is there a way to see if an egg is fertilized from the outside of the egg? Yes, there is. So this is a process that's called candling. So what you will need is a very bright flashlight. Okay, and I have a very bright flashlight right here. Woohoo, see, very bright. And after about a week, I'm going to try another injured egg here that came in. You can take your flashlight, put it over top of your egg, just like you see me doing here. And after about a week or two, you should see some veining, red veins developing inside of your egg. Okay, so you all can develop your own candling box with your teacher. So if you get a shoe box and black out your shoe box so that there's only one small hole, you can stick your egg on top of that shoebox and have your own little egg candler, and you'll be able to see the veining happening inside your egg as the embryo is starting to develop. Really good question. Oh, also in the chat box, teachers, I put the link to the Google site on embryology just so you would have ease of access to it. And I will share that out again in an email with the recording of this Zoom. What do you do with the eggs that don't hatch? If the eggs don't hatch, then please dispose of them in a proper trash receptacle. And I would do that probably on the third day after the majority of the chicks hatch. So if I'm not mistaken, your eggs should begin hatching on a Thursday, a Wednesday or Thursday. By Friday afternoon, if any egg has not hatched, please throw them away because that means that there is something inside of that egg that will begin to smell very badly, and you do not want that smell in your classroom, okay? A rotten egg smell is something that you will never forget, okay? Do not bring them back to the office. I will not do necropsy. I'm not doing that. I'm not qualified to do that. Does it matter which feeder brand we buy for the chicks, or is there a specific brand you'd recommend? So I'm assuming you're talking about what kind of feed that I used. So any type of chick starter feed is what you want to go for, and they're crumbles. They're very small pieces because the chicks' beaks are very small, and that starter feed has all the nutrients that they will need after emerging. You will need to set up a waterer though, an automatic waterer, and an automatic feeder or something to have the chicks go to for water and food. Make sure you keep their water away from the heat lamp because you don't want their water to heat up to the high temperature of your heat lamp. You also want to make sure that you don't have the heat lamp too close to your chicks because if the chicks get too hot in your brooder, then they could develop something that's called pasty butt, which means when they poop, the poop doesn't come out and fall to your shredded paper and stuff like that, but it gets stuck to the backside of them. And if their vent gets blocked and they can't poop, well, it's just like us being constipated. It'll back up inside of their little bodies and they'll die. So we have to protect them. So if you see them huddling together really tightly under the heat lamp, you might want to move it closer. If you see them spreading out away from that heat lamp and spreading their wings out, it means they're too hot. So you want to pull the heat lamp back a little bit, okay? So that way watch the behavior of the chicks and that will tell you how comfortable they are with the environment that you have created for them.
Thank
Um,
you.
you're very welcome. Since chicks need to stay warm, what is the best way to safely transport them back to your office? Good job. This was a question that came to me yesterday as well via email. So each one of you will have a brooder box to keep your chicks in your classroom, and you can bring them to me in that same box. Okay. If you are worried that getting them in transit from your school, because I know there are some schools that are kind of far away from our office here, then you can put like a heating pad, use a heating pad and put a heating pad under the box while you're in transit, because that residual heat will still create a place of warmth for them inside of the box. But the chicks should be okay for the time period that you are driving them from your school or location to our office. And you'll see once you arrive at our office that I will have heat lamps and stuff set up in the hallway in each one of our brooder boxes here to collect your chicks with, so they can find warmth as soon as they get here to our office. Good question. What about leaving water or food for them over the weekend after they hatch? So your little chicks are going to be very active. And here's something that they do constantly. They will stand up in the water and then they'll fall asleep in it. They'll fall asleep in the food too, because they're so tired and so little that they will collapse and fall over, and you'll watch and you'll have a good time watching them just suddenly nod out and just tumble over a little bit because they're just that tired. They're just like a newborn baby. So it will help if you put pebbles or some clean river rocks in the water so they can't drown in it. And if you are able to take them home that first weekend, teachers only, please, only teachers, and watch them, then you can do that to make sure that they don't poop in the water and completely contaminate their water. And the same thing goes for their food as well. You can Google all kinds of different feeders and things to provide for chicks and chickens after they once they're actually in their brooder and looking for food and water supply. So be creative in your designs, but also think safety and think cleanliness. All right. Any other questions? I don't see any other question popping up in the chat box, and I don't see anything in the Q&A. So please do feel free to unmute. Oh, I see another one. Coming back from the weekend, sometimes the humidity is low. How do we keep it up over the weekend? So here's the thing with your incubators and the humidity. It needs to be set between 60. You don't want to go over 62, 63% while the egg is developing. If there is an issue over the weekend, remember they probably don't turn the heat on in the building or have the heat on in the buildings over the weekend. So your ambient room temperature is going to change, and that could impact your incubator. If you are concerned or worried that it's going to drop too low or get too hot over the weekend, I would suggest just taking it home with you over the weekend. So that way you can watch it and monitor it for the weekend to make sure that there aren't any issues. I know last year we had some schools that lost power, and that is of no fault, of course, of your own, because we can't control these things and we can't predict the future. So we can only do the best we absolutely can. But that's a good question. If you have access to your building, if your principal trusts you enough, teachers, to give you a key and access over the weekend, and you live close enough to go in and check on the incubator, that's also something that you can work out there with your building principal and maintenance crew. I know I'll be back to check on the ones in my office over the weekend just to make sure everything is okay. You guys are asking some really good questions. Any other question? Okay, let's see. So we need to take the water out and take the whole incubator home. Yes, you will take the whole entire incubator home. If you have a towel that you can put under it to just capture any water that spills through the vent holes in it, I would strongly suggest doing that. So that way you won't have to open up the top of the incubator and release the heat that's in there and the humidity that's in there already. You don't want to shock the temperature and constantly have that temperature changing rapidly like that while you're while you're uh, while you're transporting. So I would not recommend taking the top off and then trying to pour the water off. You don't want to disturb your eggs that much. That was a good question. Any other question? And I know we've got teachers up here. So I am going to put my my email in the chat box. So that way, if you have questions over the weekend, I will be VBGov, .com. So that way, if you have questions over the weekend, I will be monitoring this email. Okay, and if you call my direct link here to my office, it will send it over to my email. So I will be listening out for that as well. So this weekend and for this month during the duration of the project, I will be monitoring these outside of office hours to the best of my ability. However, please do not expect me to call you back at 11 o'clock at night. I'm not doing that. But I will keep an eye on it. The students would like to know how you get fertilized eggs. Well, you get fertilized eggs by having a rooster or doing a process that is called in vitro fertilization, where we have hatchery scientists that go in and manually fertilize eggs before they come out of the chicken. So you have a rooster that is a male chicken, and you have a hen that is a female chicken. And when you have them together in a facility, contained in a facility, then the rooster will fertilize the eggs for the female internally. But in a commercial hatchery, the scientists are able to go in and fertilize the hens themselves through an in vitro fertilization process, and that guarantees that we have fertile eggs from the hatchery. How long until a baby chick is mature and can lay eggs? Good question, Abigail. It takes anywhere from 4 to 6 months before you can get your first egg from your chicken. We are hatching decab whites, and I do have that also on the website, so you can look those up and find out how long that particular breed takes before they become mature enough to start laying its first egg. So those will probably start laying sometime around early fall, late summer. You can start looking for those eggs to come. You all are having some really good questions. We should do this every week. I say that without looking at my calendar, of course. Yes. Pausing for more questions. Thank you all for staying on. I only had planned for 30 minutes, but your questions are really, really good. So if you have to slip off, I understand. I will send out the recording. All right, pausing for more questions. And I have the chat box up. So if you have your hand raised using the raise your hand icon at the bottom, I can't see everyone with the chat box open. So just want you to know that. All right, well, it is 1:44 by my computer clock. So oh, wait a minute, how long do chickens live? Well, I am not sure the life expectancy of all chickens. I know I raised chickens and my chickens lived quite well, or over 3 years. However, a number of eggs that they lay will start to decline as the chicken gets older. So typically at that point, they become chicken and dumplings, or stewed chicken, or something on the dinner plate, because at that point you would have to find a way to tenderize the meat. But they can live as long as you want them to, I guess, or until, a wild animal gets to them. I lived in the mountains, and I had to fight the wildlife to keep them away from my chickens, but they were 3 years old and still healthy and happy. So I don't know, but you can look that up and let me know what you find out about the DeKalb White. All right. Very good, guys. I'm going to let you all go because we're at like that 45-minute mark, and I know your teachers have something else for you to do, but you have my contact information. So please shoot me your questions that you have. Yay. Hey, Melissa. Hey, kids. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you. And go ahead and email me any questions that you have. And if I get some requests, maybe I will schedule another Zoom and we can do some candling together. But I'll send out an invite for you all. Okay? All right. You guys have a great day and an even better weekend. Bye-bye.